And so if we continue the story here, so sandwiched between this old world order concept and this new world order concept is basically where we are today. And so now we have this, what's known, as we mentioned before, is this great transition. So we're going to go from independent sovereign nations to a single world body, globally governed via two unelected bodies. And so secular power is going to be in the UN, and on behalf of that, the other side of that is the religious power, the Vatican. This is why there's the two keys on there, one for secular power, the other one is for spiritual power.
Yeah, spiritual power.
And so the next piece of this will be, we're going to go from closed borders marked by national boundary lines to an open border policy. All nations will lose their sovereign boundary lines. They're already doing this like within states, that your borders and boundaries between states will mean no more than like the county lines kind of do today. So if you're in Los Angeles, what's the difference between San Bernardino County versus LA County versus Orange County? And so if that's the type of dissolving that's being done, and we find that rhetoric, we'll find it in the Agenda 21 documents, right? So as we go through that way later in what we have prepared, you'll see that that's the actual goal. They're going to set up regions that specifically the goal of those are to blur all of these lines. And then, it's kind of like going back to Zygmunt Brzezinski's the Grand Chessboard. You take these guys who, if you need a nation state here, you'll make one. If you don't, then you'll dissolve it. But if you need some conflict in the middle, then you take two warring factions, two warring family or tribes, and you pit them around natural resources and let them argue and bicker. And when they get to start fighting, that's when you come in as a peacekeeper. But they didn't know that behind the scenes you drew it up that way, because you want to come in eventually and get those resources, and you want to partner with them to do it, so they don't know that they're being exploited. They think of you as a peacekeeper.
Yeah.
We're going to get that peacekeeping term, that peacekeeping idea. It's going to constantly pop up on the scene.
I mean, you know this. I don't know how many other people know. I've told you about war in Armenia too, about 2 years ago. So you have Azerbaijan attacking Armenia over some land that they've been going back and forth for a couple, at least 30 years. This is the second war, and so war goes on for 44 days. We have Turkey, the NATO, the good guys, helping out the the Azerbaijan who's attacking Armenia and all that stuff. And here's Armenia crying for help, right? If you don't know, I'm Armenian. And Russia comes in finally after 44 days. They come in, the tanks move in, and then we go into the normalization state.
There you go.
And they come in as what? As a peacekeeper.
Yes.
So they take a nice area where where kind of in between two nations that are warring, and where the $28 billion pipeline was going to go through Azerbaijan, through Armenia to Turkey to supply some natural gas and resources to Europe, right?
And that has its own history,
exactly.
Why they're doing that.
Yeah, so now we've seen Russia do it. Now we're going to see probably something like that's going on right now. We can't even say it. It's crazy because we already, one of the videos we uploaded, just because we named the country, all of a sudden it's Ukraine.
Yeah, because it's us. We upload the video and then it's like giving us a warning.
Yeah, so we had to cut it out or whatever. We manual review and everything. So we'll probably see something like that too. Now, like you said, you have two warring countries, and then somebody has to step in as a peacekeeper, right?
Right.
The worse it gets, the more outcry for the peace comes out, and then everybody wants to unite and just let's coexist, guys.
Yeah. So that kind of gets us on to the next piece here. So you get this idea of, sovereignty is going to go out the door for the nation states. And then, from national armaments and weapons to protect each country, well, there's already talks about doing this, take the weapons of war out of the hands of the nation states, because they're kind of like spoiled children. They don't know how to behave, and they keep fighting amongst themselves, and they're causing all of these unnecessary casualties. And so what we need to do is we need to take these weapons of war and we'll put them under the authority of like the United Nations or some world governing body. And so
somebody we can trust.
Kind of like, how they did with the Federal Reserve, that it's neither federal nor does it have any reserves. But the whole idea was to stop the ebb and flow of the market, right? So
it's as federal as Federal Express, right?
There you go. Yeah. And so the next piece is from national currencies to a cashless social credit system. And so, again, I think we've reiterated this a couple times, but our financial scoring system was, built upon by the Chinese to get their their social credit score system. And so that's going to be what it all of that is going to end up being is the gamification of society, to where you don't really have these things that were called natural rights anymore. They'll be called natural rights, but they're really going to be privileges, kind of like driving in California. Driving is a privilege, but it's not a right.
Yeah, and if we go with the theme of like corporation and companies and all that stuff, we know that they have policies, right? So then there's no real, it's not a law, it's a policy.
Right.
If you don't obey by it. So we've saw the past 2 years where, we can't legally enforce this, but this is a mandate. Like, okay, what does that mean? Do I have to do this? Do I not have to do this? Because if you're saying I have to do this, there's some rights you're infringing on. That's why you're not saying that it's a law, but then, somehow you're still pushing it. So
somehow we all have to abide by it.
Yeah,
right?
but we already see how blurred the lines are, right? Between the mandates, the laws, what it goes over, what it can't.
And if you're a civilian, you're one of those people walking around without obeying the mandates, without wearing the face coverings and things like that, then you get vilified by those that are either perpetuating the psyop or those that are fooled by it. So the next piece on here, we're going from national constitutions to international law of universal privileges based on a social credit score. And then we go from this quasi-religious freedom idea to this idea of universal nature worship based on pantheism. And so we'll get into later to why they use pantheism. It satisfies both the secular and the sacred accounts. And so people that, if nature is like this universal thing that kind of glues everybody together, if you call nature God, then you have some people that on the religious side will be like, this is God's creation, we should take care of it. If you're a secularist, like, this is my environment, I want to take care of it. Yeah. And so when you get the consolidation of the religions later under this idea of pantheism, we're going to see the end results of that when we get to the section that talks about, why they want to unify the world's religions and what's really behind all of that stuff.
Bringing back the blue laws or whatever, right? That's what it was called, blue laws.
Yeah, so in the United States, so just like I guess a heads up, the lockdowns that we saw under the pandemic will then kind of shift over to, as our CNN correspondent would say, where the next thing for us is climate change, and then that's going to
we're going to hit climate change fast, whatever.
The next thing after that is Sunday law, right? So that will be implemented globally. Now you can get this idea of look how much the Earth recovered under this idea that everybody was resting. They didn't call it that because everybody was under mandatory lockdown. And so you get a cleaner environment. Look at the air. The air it's fresher. It's easier to breathe. You get all these. If you look at the maps of like air quality, it's green everywhere, right? And so under that idea, if we all just took one day off
out of the week, right?
Out of the week to let the environment rest. You're appeasing both parties at that time. So,
and since you Christian folks like that Sunday thing, you don't want to work, you want to go and all that stuff. How about we take that day?
Right. So Sunday is not the Sabbath, but they're going to use Sunday as that international day of rest. And so the secular people will be like, yeah, I'll take a day off for the environment. Why not? Give me 3 days off if it's if it's necessary, right? So. And then you get this idea of non-traditional family structure. So no more this idea of a father, mother, child. It can be two fathers, two mothers, and whatever mixture is allowable. And so the next piece is selective breeding for determined roles within the world state. And so here's where we finally get to what's known as the Great Consolidation, or at least what we term the Great Consolidation. And so they're going to consolidate all national constitutions under a UN charter. We already see this type of thing happening. You get all these parallel organizations, NGOs, CSOs, that are set up to do the primary functions and roles of administrations. Yeah,
they start as advisory companies, right? We'll just come here and make sure that you're doing the right thing.
We just want to advise you on policy. And so most of your policy actually comes from these characters, and we'll get into, I think midway through is kind of like all the roundtable group influence on all the governments of the world, how they do it, and we kind of get the nitty gritty behind in the details, the inner workings of the roundtable groups. When Cecil Rhodes was still here, and then shortly after he passes away, who takes over from there, and what the actual ideas were. And so the next piece is consolidate all the wealth through corporations. And so you have this idea that they want to bankrupt the nations. We saw this before with Cost Plus, with the war, the war on terror is what they called it. But the war on Iraq, the war in Afghanistan. And so Cost Plus was you would get if you're a company that's going over there to participate, you're khaki, black watercolor, brown, and root. You're going over there to provide security or put in roads and electrical wires or
just democracy. Make sure that,
So the military is doing the democracy part.
Yeah.
you're a supplemental.
The companies that are supporting. That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm thinking of the military.
You're laying the roads for the people need to get to KFC and they need to get to Starbucks, right? So. So you get this idea that under Cost Plus, you got a percentage of the total amount of money that you wasted, right? So you had, laundry, and a bag of laundry was costing $99 per bag. A six-pack can of soda, a six-pack of soda was $45.
Yeah.
And so you get these extravagant costs. The one that we saw was the SUV that they paid the total lease was $250,000 for a $40,000 vehicle.
Yeah, most of it is, we go a little bit deeper in Communist Version 1 in all those, right?
Yeah.
That one is still on YouTube, so you can watch that.
Yeah, they haven't stricken that one off.
It's like, imagine you're trying to teach your kid about business. Hey, you can open this lemonade stand. Here's $10. If you spend all that, I'll give you $12.
Makes no sense.
To cover whatever you spend, and then $2 would be your profit.
Yeah, so however much money you waste,
I'm
going to give you that as a percentage of profit. Plus, I'm going to cover your base cost of the contract for going out there. So there's this upfront. This is what we're willing to pay for you even going on this campaign.
Yeah. So for whoever has the lemonade business, that's really good. But whoever is going to pay, that's not going to last too long.
And so this was part of Robert Wells from the John Birch Society. He gives those 10-point strategies for how you would systematically go through and do something like this. You need to get rid of the currency of the United States as wastefully as possible. And we start seeing that you get these ideas like in the last year or 2 years we borrowed more money than historically we've ever printed.
Yeah, I think it's like over 30% of the printed amount was in the past 2 years, over $10 trillion.
And where is it?
I'm sure he's doing something good in the world, Jeremy.
So
I wouldn't question
it. So we
it.
can get into to that stuff later because if there's this whole idea: follow the money, you find the perpetrators, right? But what is the next piece here? So for sure, they're consolidating the wealth, and you're getting these CSOs and NGOs kind of taking over the functions of government, but in the international space.
And also, we see it with like BlackRock, Vanguard, and all that stuff too. Majority of these big companies are owned in major shares to them, to the point where now you have somebody like Elon Musk would come in, buy a majority selling shares in Twitter, and then Vanguard would go out of their way to buy more just to have that control.
And it's not even valued that much.
Yeah.